In a city that never sleeps, a lone guitarist makes his leaps. Fingers dance, strings sing a tale of a dream that feels so frail. Echoes fill the silent night. A lost love, a heart so tight. But in this cold, hard world, hope's just a fleeting word. Oh, trees whisper, oh, trees sigh. In the darkness they take flight. Heartbreak echoes, lonely cry. In the cold, hard light, guitar soars through the stormy skies. A melody that pierces the eyes. Love's a memory, a distant dream. In this world it seems fingers glide in the fading light. A final note, a last good night. Lost in the shadows, lost in time. Dreams are all we find. Oh, dreams whisper, oh, dreams sigh. In the darkness they take flight. Heartbreak echoes, a lonely cry. In the cold, hard light.
In the shadows where whispers dwell, slight guitar sings of love's farewell. Echoes of the heart once bold, now lost in the night's cold fold. Secrets hidden deep within, tales of love that couldn't win. Promises made in moonlight's glow, now broken like a shattered show. Sorrow in the guitar's cry, resilience in the sky. Through the night we'll find our way, carrying secrets, holding on today. Memories of laughter and tears, in the silence they appear. Whispers of a time so true, when love was all we knew. Lost in the echoes of the past, wishing for what we had. In the dark we search for light, holding on to what we fight. Through the pain, through the night, we find strength in the fight. Sorrow in the guitar's cry, resilience in the sky. Through the night we'll find our way, carrying secrets. to give.
521. Sorry, a card for a parking problem. Foreigner 23. This is Foreigner 28 on truck when you're ready.
All right, good morning, everybody. It feels like we have to get together every morning now, right? It feels like a morning isn't complete if I don't get to come in and say hello to you guys and have my morning coffee with you, right? So it's good to see everybody. This will give me a chance to maybe answer some questions too. This won't be a long show, so I have some other shows to do this afternoon. So I'm recording with Dave McGrath on a show that we posted not on this channel, but somewhere else. And then after that, I'm going to be recording with Margaret today too. I'm not sure if she's set up to do that live yet. So that'll probably be recorded and posted on her channel. That's Margaret McLean. And 6 o'clock, I'm doing a show with Nick from True Crime Garage. Again, that's another one that's not live. He has one of the larger true crime shows in the world. This will be my second show with him on the Karen Reed case, and he's a great host and a great interviewer. I don't know where it'll be posted, so I'll keep everybody up to date when it comes out. And then at 8 o'clock, I'm doing a kind of fill-in spot on Court TV because they normally during the trial they wanted me and Nick and Joe on Tuesday and Fridays. So I'm assuming I'm still going on tomorrow, although I don't know that. I think that they probably just needed a fill-in on Thursday. Maybe they didn't have quite enough guests. So I'll be on Court TV at 8 o'clock tonight. And I think Margaret will be on that episode too at 8 o'clock. So it'll be cool to be. I'm on with Margaret during the day, and I'll be on with her at night. So that'll be fun. I'm not sure who else is on the show tonight. So we've had a lot of developments in the last week, right? And one of the things that I want to make an appeal to people to do is this. So as I've said many times on this show, there are different ways for each of us to have our voice felt, to have an impact on this case. And it's up to each person to find their own way, in a sense. And not everybody can do what I'm doing. Not everybody has the time to set up a YouTube channel. And there are other reasons people can't do it too. Not everybody is in a situation where they can take the heat from the mob on their family. So I get that. And I don't ever want to be seen as trying to guilt anybody into doing that. But there are things that people can do, right? That won't result in anything like that. And so before we even say what some of those things are, I do think that if you're not willing to pay at least some kind of a price or take on some kind of a risk, then maybe at some point you'll feel that you didn't do everything that you could do. So there is a role to maybe actually having your voice heard out there. And again, I'm not trying to pressure anybody because those are personal decisions. And down the road, will you feel that you did what you could, that you were willing to risk something, that you had the courage to make a stand? Those are things just to think about. But again, they're personal decisions. Now, one of the things that I think that people can do that could possibly, and there's no way of knowing, have a positive result, is to reach out to the Boston Globe Spotlight team, which I have done too. And you can just go on Google and Google Boston Globe Spotlight team, and they have an email up there that you can reach out to them. And if enough people reach out to the Boston Globe Spotlight team wanting coverage on this matter, maybe at some point they'll respond. Now, what I think needs to be covered is the federal aspect of this, and this is what people are afraid to cover. You need someone in the mainstream media to start digging into this. It can't be a little guy living in a fake yellow cottage. It has to be someone with the proper clout. I'm doing it, but nobody pays attention to me. So it really needs to be the Boston Globe. I'm not sure. I mean, obviously, even better if it's like the Wall Street Journal or something like that. But locally, it has to be the Boston Globe. If they're not going to, they're the only ones that could start investigating and reach out to the U.S. Attorney's Office. And even whether they got an answer or not, the U.S. Attorney's Office would be paying attention. And that's important because the U.S. Attorney's Office, all they really care about is headlines. And we're seeing the new U.S. Attorney, Leah Foley, she's holding press conferences every day now, right? Not on this topic, but on something. And that's how they operate. Now, I have no idea whether Leah Foley is a person of integrity and a person of courage or not. We're hoping she is. But we do know that they, just like all of her predecessors, they're driven by headlines. They're driven by media coverage. And so if they feel that there's a certain amount of pressure coming for them to get to the truth or reveal the truth on what happened in the Karen Reed investigation, maybe they'll either A, see opportunity in that. Because if Leah Foley starts showing the wrongdoing of her predecessors, maybe there's some political benefit for that in there for her. Or at the very least, they start worrying that when the music stops, they're going to be the one that's left without a chair. They're the ones that will pay a price for Josh Levy's wrongdoing. Now, some of those people that were surrounding Josh Levy that participated in that wrongdoing are still in that office. Make no doubt about it. They don't want this covered. They don't want this. They don't want any of this exposed. And so, is that putting pressure on Leah Foley? Probably. I don't know. But so I would write to the Boston Globe Spotlight team and not demand because they're not, just request that you really want to see them looking into the wrongdoing of the U.S. Attorney's Office. And one of the things you can mention that proves this wrongdoing, there's a lot of smoke there, right? But one thing that really is solid proof is the fact that the U.S. Attorney's Office was violating sequestration order during the Karen Reed first trial to give the ARCA guys, Dr. Wolf, information about what the testimony was that came before them during the trial from the state's experts. That's wrong. I'm going to guess that it's illegal. I'm going to guess that at the very least rules were violated there, but that's borderline on a crime. So that's something that needs to be investigated. All right, and that's and when you're looking at something like that, that's always just a tip of the iceberg. There's always going to be more. If you have somebody from the U.S. Attorney's Office that is so invested in trying to help Karen Reed win the case that they're communicating testimony from the state's witnesses to the ARCA guys, they're doing more than that. There's no question that they're doing more than that. And it didn't just begin there. Now, we have other evidence of what they've been doing. For example, we know that they communicated. So Josh Levy, who was U.S. Attorney at the time, held a conference call with David Denny and Alan Jackson, in which he advised them to get a delay in the trial and even gave them advice about what to say to the media. That's inappropriate. That's a sign of wrongdoing. And it's been going on. That was not the beginning of it. To what extent did it go? They seem to have been, according to the state, communicating to Karen Reed the times and dates of when witnesses were going to appear before the federal grand jury. Now, they did this knowing that Karen was giving this information to Turtle Boy in order to harass those witnesses. That's egregious wrongdoing. And it needs to be investigated, but it can't be investigated by me. It needs to be someone that can call up and say, this is so-and-so from the Boston Globe Spotlight team. And they don't seem to want to do it. But if enough people reach out to the Spotlight team, maybe they'll begin to do it. Maybe it's somebody else. If you think it's somebody else that has a better chance of doing this, I don't know, Christina Rex or David Bienick from ABC News, Ted Daniel, whoever you think should be covering this, reach out to any and all of them. But I think the Boston Globe Spotlight team at least has a reputation of doing those kind of investigations, of trying that kind of hard-nosed journalism of trying to get to the bottom of it. I don't know. They made a movie about them. They did it with the Catholic priest scandal. I'm assuming they've done it with something else. Maybe they haven't. I really have no idea. I have no idea what goes on behind those walls. Maybe nothing. Maybe there's no real work being done anymore. Maybe it's all a charade now at this point. I don't know. But without it, we're dead. Journalism seems to be dead now. Seems to be no effort to try to get to the truth of anything. There's no courage. There's no willingness to want to take on powerful institutions like the feds. So I don't know. Is journalism dead? What do you guys think? But I would say go to the Boston Globe Spotlight team. And somebody's saying, quote my source. I'm not sure what you're talking about, but maybe you don't understand how sourcing works. Okay. most of this reporting like this, whether it's with regular journalism or anything else, when it's done with sources, you don't quote them and you don't name them. That's generally how it works. Maybe you don't understand that. That's how it works with the New York Times. That's how it works with the Washington Post. That's how it works with the Wall Street Journal. With issues like this, you have someone speaking to you behind the scenes. They don't want to be quoted. I'm not sure why people don't understand that. What you have to do is trust the reporter. But as far as a source for the U.S. Attorney's Office breaking sequestration order, if you don't know, I don't understand how you don't know, because the source is Dr. Wolf, who said this in a goddamn hearing. Why don't you know that, dude? He said it in a hearing in April on the voir dire that was public, was broadcast. Were you not watching? Did you not hear about it? I mean, this is a problem. He said this, that the U.S. Attorney's Office was telling him this. This came out in the same voir dire when he was reporting that Alan Jackson was, of course, they deleted over 100 messages, and that Alan Jackson was communicating him over the encryption app called Signal. Do you not know this? I'm confused how you don't know this, but this is the problem, right? Because if you're only paying attention to your media sources, Turtle Boy or whatever, you're not going to know. He's not going to tell you. But the mainstream media is not going to tell you either. That was the bombshell that came out of that. But I guess you don't know it unless who told me? It was in the hearing. It was live, dude. Did you not see it? Did you really not see it? This was in April. It was a voir dire. Go back and look at it. No one told me it was live. We all watched it. Did you not watch it? So, I mean, again, you really shouldn't. You're not really in a position to question me because you don't know what you're talking about. This was live. This was Dr. Wolf from ARCA on the stand in a voir dire under questioning from Hank Brennan, in which he admitted. You can go back and watch it, dude. It's still over YouTube. It's on my channel. I forget what it was. If you look for the voir dire in April, you'll find it. He said on the stand that the U.S. Attorney's Office was communicating with him about the testimony of the state's experts. So what you need to do now is say, if you're a serious person, if you're actually interested in the truth, and I don't think you are, but if you are interested in the truth, what you need to do is say, why don't I know this? Why don't I know this? It's a serious. Now, I'm not saying you should have been watching that day because presumably you have a job and you didn't get to see that voir dire. Okay, that's not your fault. But you should be asking, why didn't your sources in the media tell you this? Why didn't Turtle Boy tell you this? Why didn't Young Jelly tell you this? Why didn't Channel 5 tell you this? Why didn't Ted Daniels tell you this? Why didn't Canton Confidential tell you this? Why didn't Sue O'Connell tell you this? This is you can go back and look this up right now. It's in the voir dire. So if you're interested in the truth and you think I'm lying, go look it up. And then you're going to say, wow, Kevin was telling me the truth. And I didn't know about this. And if you're a serious person that's interested in the truth, you'll say, why didn't I know about this? Why didn't the media tell me? Why didn't my sources, your sources, tell you? That's what you'll say if you're a serious person, right? Am I wrong? I mean, this is a very serious issue. And for some reason, you're unaware of it. And so you're telling me one of my sources, and I'm telling you my sources was a voir dire, a live hearing that's recorded and is all over YouTube. So why don't you know? Why don't you know this? Okay. As far as the source on with Josh Levy having a teleconference with Karen's lawyers, that was revealed in a state. I don't have the document in front of me, but it was revealed in a state document in January of 2024. And I believe that document, if you want to look for it, was the one where they got a warrant for Karen's phone. So if you are interested in the truth and you want to look that up, you can. I don't have time to line up everything for you in every show. It's too time consuming. Now, since the things that I report have a strong history of being true, I mean, incredibly strong, you could just say, hey, maybe this guy tends to be right. Even if I don't agree with his conclusions, he reports the truth. Maybe I should start to trust him. But I'm telling you where to find it. It's the charging document, and not the I'm sorry, it's the warrant for Karen's phone, uh, that had a lot of material in it. For instance, they had stuff about the rolling they had pictures of the rolling rally in that. So that was from January of 2024. You can go find it. It's right there. I have it somewhere in my computer. I'm not looking for it for you. Um, but this is widely reported. All right. Now you can question the truth of that document. So I can tell you the sourcing of it, and it's not unreasonable to wonder if that might be completely true. So what happened was Karen told this to Aiden, and then Aiden told this to Lindsay, and she swore this to the state troopers. So it's in there. Um, so it's possible Lindsay lied. It's possible Karen lied to Turtle Boy. It's possible Turtle Boy lied to Lindsay. Turtle Boy lies all the time. So you can question that, but I'm not making it up. It is in that document. And there's no question about the voir dire with Dr. Russell. Now, there are other things I can give you and have given you that you just have to trust my sourcing on it. For instance, the fact that Josh Levy himself participated. Yep, but you're saying I'm spouting off with no proofs, but you're a moron because I've just given you the proof. You can go look it up. All right, so you don't want the truth, Jeff. You have no interest in the truth. If you want the truth, you can go look up that voir dire. It's in April, but you don't want the truth and you won't look it up. So that's when just raise your hand and say, my name is Jeff and I have no interest in the truth. That's the honest thing. Just be honest. Just be honest with yourself. That's the most important thing in this case or anything in life is to always be honest with yourself. And you have no interest in the truth. Just admit it. I mean, it's okay. Look, there's a lot of fun in life to just buy into a fantasy. That's all you got to do. So no, you are a moron, Jeff. You have no interest in the truth. No, I shouldn't say you're a moron. I don't know if you're a moron. I can say for sure that you have no interest in the truth. You're probably a moron, but you definitely have no interest in the truth. And so it is what it is. If you want the truth, you come here and you just quietly listen and dummy up until you get caught up because you have no interest in the truth. I'm here to give it to you. You don't want it. And that's okay. Look, it's to go through life buying into a certain fantasy can be fun, right? I mean, I can put out my bucket tonight and believe that in the morning it's going to be filled with beer, that it's going to rain beer tonight. That's a fun fantasy, right? Why not? Right? I mean, I know people that believe in all kinds of strange things in life that comfort them. And, you know, fairies and angels and all kinds of stuff. I don't begrudge it to them. If it makes your life more entertaining to you or more acceptable. But if you want the truth, at least I'll give you that. You're at the right place if you actually want the truth. All right. So listen, guys, reach out to the Boston Globe Spotlight team. And I would also suggest maybe reach out to other media sources, like, for example, I think the Canton Confidential. They have a tip hotline in there. Reach out to Canton Confidential and tell them you want the truth and you want things covered from both sides. Tell them you want things covered in a non-biased way, but if they can't do that, at least get both sides. Because if it's called Canton Confidential, presumably it has something to do with the town of Canton. And this town is being destroyed by a mindless mob, by falsehoods that are turning neighbor against neighbor. And it's a nice little town. That shouldn't have to happen. So if Canton Confidential actually cares about, Canton, they should want to get both sides of the story. And so reach out to Canton Confidential and say you need to get both sides of the story. And I'm willing to go on there and talk to them, or I'm willing to talk background on them. I don't need to go on their show. I can talk to someone on the phone and give them the actual information. And I'm not sure if they want that. They seem to have always kind of leaned towards the conspiracy since day one. I don't consider them a very good source, but maybe that'll change. Maybe that is changing. I don't know. They haven't Margaret on there, so that's a good start. at least they're having someone that is interested in the truth. And maybe they'll continue along that path. But if they can now, if their primary concern is ratings, then they'll continue to pander to the conspiracy theorists. But if they have a concern about what this is doing in their community, the way it's dividing them, the way innocent people are being persecuted because of it, maybe they'll consider trying to get the other side of the story and not just the Sue O'Connell side of the story. Maybe they'll at least consider it. All right. So there are things you can do. You could reach out to the U.S. Attorney's Office and be specific. Tell the U.S. Attorney's Office that you believe they have evidence that is material to the Karen Reed case that would exonerate the witnesses, but that they didn't hand over. Now, we don't know what they have and what they didn't hand over, but we have reason to believe that they have geofence data, for example, on 34 Fairview. Let me just have a sip of water. And if they have material evidence like that, important evidence, and they're sitting on it, that's highly unethical. So, for instance, if they got geofence data that shows who was in the house at 34 Fairview during the relevant time period, and they didn't hand that over to both parties, that's unethical. It borders on criminal. So, for instance, if they have evidence that shows that Colin was not in that house at 12:15 or 12:20, and they didn't hand that over, that's unethical. Or if they did get that geofence data and it doesn't show John inside that house, and they never handed that over, that's unethical. But we don't know because they're the feds. They don't respond. They feel like they're above the rest of us, and they're not accountable. So I do think that I think that they have material, but we don't know because they've been so unresponsive all along in this case. So now let's talk quickly about the prosecution's presentation of this case so far. Do I think it's gone well? Do I think it's? Oh, I want to answer Yo Auntie's question too. Good morning. This is our friend Anthony, who's been on the show a couple of times. And Anthony, you're always welcome to come on. I tend to, if I haven't talked to someone for a couple of months, I do tend to forget about them. So, but you're always welcome to come on with me. You did a great job, and people loved listening to you on the show. So feel free to just reach out to me. I know we'd love to have you on the panel, although the panel's got very crowded at this point. So, I don't know. I had some technical issues yesterday. All of a sudden, once I added John DePetro to the room, there was so many people in it. My computer started getting fritzy, and I couldn't hear. So we'll work around that. I'll figure out a way. And there are some days we only have a few people on. So, Tyler, I'm going to say no. You can talk to me on the phone, and I'll find out a little bit more about how you present yourself. The problem with just taking people on the show that you haven't seen on a show before is that you don't know what you're getting. You don't know if they'll behave in an appropriate way. And I'm not saying you won't. I'm just saying if somebody has this is why I tend to have people on that already have their own YouTube channel, because they have a body of work that you can look at, and so you kind of know how well they present on a show. You know what I'm saying? So that's how I approach that, because I do get a lot of people reaching out to me on that, and what do I do with it? So one of my approaches to that is I had someone reaching out to me yesterday, and basically what I said was this. I said, I want to help you start your own channel if that's what you want to do, and then now you have a body of work that I can look at. Now I understand why someone might want to come on someone else's channel first, because it would make sense to see if they're comfortable with it. So I do get that. But if I bring someone on this that has not been on another channel, or I haven't seen anywhere before, I don't know what I'm bringing on, and I don't know if they're adding to the show or just creating a headache for me. And it tends to be more likely the latter. But for anybody that wants to develop their own show, I want to encourage them. And so, for instance, one person was Twisted Tragedies. She, back in the summer of 2023, had reached out to me and said that she was considering doing her own show. And so I advised her as best as I could, not that I'm an expert or anything like that, but and she was free Karen Reed at the time. But anybody that wants help with that, I'm happy to help them. So Anthony says, "Good morning, Kevin. Good morning, guys. Kevin, do you feel the Commonwealth has done enough this time around?" Oh, good. That was kind of my question, anyways. Um, he says, "I still feel like we could get a hung jury." Well, I would say a hung jury in this case was always, if not likely, at least a good chance, even before the case began, because of the high profile nature of the case and the fact that the jury pool was contaminated. And looking at what we had in the first trial, where it looks like at least two of the jurors that ended up on there really should not have been. They came in with a bias already, and one of them ultimately got dismissed. And it looks like maybe some other ones maybe had a bias too when they came in there. So, but definitely one got dismissed, and she came in. She should not have been that jury. She was lying every day when she was saying that she was not following the case in social media. We know she was, because she was going into bars and saying, "I'm a turtle rider and I'm on the jury and I'm going to acquit Karen." That's unacceptable. So there's in this kind of case, there's always a chance of that. And so that's the problem with it. But leaving aside the contamination of the jury pool, if we put all that aside, has the Commonwealth done enough to avoid a hung jury? It's hard to say yet, right? Because the defense has not finished their case, and then depending on what the defense does, there will be a rebuttal by the prosecution too. I would say that the prosecution has done enough, but it's tricky. Where I think listen, I think everybody knows how I feel, what I think the prosecution should have done, and it hasn't changed. Um, this was reflected in, if we go back, maybe I'll play it some night or find the old script that I did for it. I did my own mock jury opening statements about a month before the trial. And in that, I never mentioned I hit him. That was not because I forgot about it. My preference in this case was to focus tightly on the physical evidence and the data. Close all other avenues and don't include anything that could be open to interpretation. Focus on the tight material and just stick to that. And I wanted the jurors to remember a few buzzwords. One of them was correlation, was the key correlation between John's phone and Karen's vehicle data. The second thing I wanted to focus on was the timelines. And the third thing I don't remember. I remember there was three. But the third buzzword I wanted the jury to remember was timeline. Because the timeline makes the planting of evidence here impossible. All right. I'm not talking about could something have been planted weeks later or something like that, but the fundamental evidence that was found that day, there was no time. And that's what I want the jury to take away from this. So while we don't know what Karen's and frankly, had they done that, you can see the benefit of it now. Had all of us done that, right? Look, my approach has been, and everybody knows this, consistent on this. I've been consistent on this for 2 years because this is my thoughts generally on true crime before this case. And that is to discount. Good morning, John. And that is to discount eyewitness testimony that is not corroborated by other eyewitness testimony or hard physical evidence. Because that any eyewitness testimony that is isolated like that isn't backed up by other testimony or evidence, is open to interpretation. We don't know exactly what they said. We don't know what they meant. That's the problem with that kind of evidence. Now, the benefit to having ignored that evidence is that it would now make it easier to ignore things like Lucky, things like the woman that testified yesterday, the lady that had been in the waterfall. I forget her name, the Greek lady. Or, for instance, it would make it easier to ignore Officer Barrows. Or was there someone else there? See, these are eyewitness testimonies that aren't corroborated by other witnesses or by the data. So let's just take Officer Barrows. People can look at what he said and the other side does and say that's reasonable doubt, right? Of course, you can always look at the actual evidence too. But to me, this is why I try to downplay eyewitness testimony, or like Lucky Lawford. How do we know what Lucky did see or didn't see? Was he where the other one was the officer Kelly Dever. This is a problem, especially in high-profile cases. And I've talked about this for 2 years. I didn't just start talking about it today. And maybe John has seen this on some other high-profile cases that he's covered. When you have a high-profile case, it's drawing everybody's attention. So I saw this, obviously looking back to the Lizzie Borden case, which was the crime of the century at that time. But not just that. I read an interesting book called I think it was called The Man from the Train. It was about a series of axe murderer slayings that occurred a little more than a century ago. It's around 1910, 1912, that remained unsolved. Now, these cases were not like today. See, the news media was different back then. You didn't really have much of a national press. You certainly didn't have TV and radio at that time. So if an axe murderer went into some little town in the middle of Iowa and slaughtered a family, the rest of the country wouldn't hear about it. But in that region, that became the event of their lifetime, of everybody that lived there, in that town and the surrounding towns and villages. That was the thing of their lives. And everybody wants to, not everybody, but there's a lot of people, most people feel some draw to want to be a part of the biggest event of their lives. So let me try to think of an different example that would have nothing to do with true crime. You know, obviously big cases like 9/11 or something. Let's say the Boston Marathon bombing. A few days after that, when they arrested the Shania brother, when there was a shootout there, if you lived in that area, there would be an enormous temptation or desire to want to say you saw something important. So maybe you might say, hey, that Shania brother ran through my yard when he was trying to get to the boat. And you'd be eager to tell that story. You'd want to tell your friends that story. You'd be sitting at the coffee shop saying, yeah, I'm pretty sure that guy ran through my yard to get when he was escaping. There's a desire in all of us, really pretty much all of us, to want to be, most of our lives tend to be pretty meaningless, right? We're not connected to big events. We don't, that big event that comes along once in a lifetime, chances are we're not connected to it. Chances are we didn't see anything, right? So there is a desire to say, hey, that big thing that happened, I saw this. I knew someone that was on one of the planes on 9/11. How many people have told that story, right? I saw Carlton Fisk hit that great home run in 1975 in the World Series. I mean, there's a temptation to want to say you're connected to these meaningful events. It makes your life feel more meaningful. And so this is the problem with these cases. So we would see this in The Man from the Train. That in all of those cases that were pretty well documented, there would be false witnesses that came forward and testified to seeing things that it would later be apparent from other evidence that it was impossible for them to have seen. And there were false convictions based on that. And so we saw this with Kelly Dervis. She said that she saw Chief Berkowitz and Brian Higgins inside the Sally Port with Karen's Lexus. But it was later shown that that was impossible because she wasn't there. How does this happen? Is she making it up? Probably not. But the beginning of that kind of thing happens becomes from a desire to have seen something meaningful, to have seen something important, relevant to the big case. And so probably Kelly Devers, the rumors going around, that's a story about the conspiracy. She didn't remember that until after the Turtle Boy story broke, right? And then suddenly she said, "Oh yeah, I remember seeing." We don't know exactly how it came down. Did she report it to people who told the FBI? Did she call the FBI? My guess is she probably told some people who told the FBI, "Hey, you really should talk to this Kelly Devers person. She seems to have seen something." And so she's probably just talking about it. And this is going to go on in all of these big cases. And I predicted it 2 years ago. I said, you're going to see, I used to talk about this with Sean and Dave McGrath, and I would say, you're going to see people like this come forward. And you can't trust it. You can't trust it. And we've seen this with a lot of people that came forward and I would say duped Sean McDonough, people like Peter Murphy. And I think the part that Sean was missing was to be more skeptical. Maybe not because Sean probably in his time in law enforcement never dealt with a case like this that was so high profile that it was on everybody's mind. And so maybe he underestimated that would pull a lot of false witnesses forward. And I think that's the part that he was missing. And so this is here when I look at somebody like Lucky, it's probably just the same thing. These kind of witnesses come forward in these cases for different reasons, but all of them, there's this tendency to want to have seen something meaningful in the big case. And so that's why you have to dismiss it. But it's easier for me to say now because of my position that I dismiss this kind of testimony because I've also dismissed Karen's testimony, which is a little different because these are things that she has said to the media. But to me, words are words. And if it's not backed up by other evidence, I don't really factor. And so this is, I think it's a little easier now if you've taken a position like me where you've said, all right, I don't really know what Karen said or what she meant. I'm not going to factor it. I'm going to focus on the physical evidence, the data, the timelines, the stuff that is not open to interpretation. And that is what I wish the prosecution had done. They have done it to a degree. They've definitely presented a much tighter case than they did the first time. They have closed off all real avenues, other avenues for an alternative theory. There is no room anymore for any alternative theory as to what happened in this case. So the prosecution has done a good job of closing that off. But it could be a little distracting. It certainly is to the public, and it could be to the jury to have to debate some of this eyewitness testimony. So I think maybe had the prosecution just said, we're going to focus on the evidence that is indisputable, that is not open to interpretation, then it would be easier for the prosecution to get the jury to do that. Because we don't want the jury paying attention to things that don't matter, like what Lucky saw. We don't know what Lucky saw, if anything. We want the jury to pay attention to the kind of evidence that is not open to multiple interpretations. So this is why I said in my mock opening statements, timeline. Focus on the timeline. Could Proctor have planted evidence? No, because of the timeline. It's just impossible. And so who could have buried those taillight pieces at street level, 3 feet down in the snow? Nobody. That's the simple answer is nobody. There is nobody else that could have done it. No, there is no way it could have been done. Because the Lexus was either under surveillance video all day or Karen was in it. So there was just no way anybody could have tampered with it. And if nobody planted that main taillight piece, then Karen did it. There's no other way around it. But if you keep the evidence simple, it's much easier to make the public see that and much easier to make a jury see that. And that's why I think it's important. I don't know. I mean, obviously, showing those clips does have an impact on the jury. So I'm not saying they shouldn't have shown them. So I don't know. Maybe they could have shown the clips, but don't say in the opening statement or in the closing statement that Karen confessed because she didn't confess. So hopefully the prosecution will not make a big deal of Karen's statements in their closing argument. In their closing argument, they should focus 100%, not 99%, 100% on the indisputable evidence, the physical evidence, the data, and the timelines. That's what they need to focus on so that the jury focuses just on that. If the jury focuses on that, they'll have no choice. Now, I think also it might make sense to, I think maybe the second degree charge was a mistake. Not because she's not guilty of it, and there is much better evidence for it now than there was then. Mostly because the third prong of second degree murder is the reckless endangerment prong, where if Karen engaged in an action, if she took an action that she should have known might lead to grave or fatal injury, then that's second degree. The intent was putting it in reverse at a high speed, knowing that someone could have been there. Now, that's very well established now because of the new data that shows that John had just got out of the car at 12:31:59. That's 17 seconds before his phone moved for the very last time. So that really does go a long way towards establishing second degree. And we also have the time that John last returned his phone off, and that was only seconds. That was only 8 seconds before the phone last moved. So presumably just a few seconds before he was struck. That said, I think it might have been easier for the jury if you just kept it simple at OUI manslaughter. So while I do think you can make the case for second degree, and you could also make the case that let the jury decide, right? There's enough evidence there. Let's put it out there and let's let the jury decide. You can make that case. I have no problem with that. But as a practical matter, I think you may be more likely to get a conviction if you just focused on the OUI manslaughter charge. I think that would have been a better strategy. Because I can imagine the jury sitting there, and as they're kind of asking a lot of what if questions, some of them are going to be spinning the second degree thing and thinking, it's too much. And that might make it harder for them to reach a consensus. So, but anyways, it's too late on all that now. So have they done enough at this point to get 12 jurors to vote guilty? It's close, right? I think it's close. I don't know if Archer will be able to create any more doubt. I don't know, we're hearing that Rich Green is not going to testify. Are they going to present any data person based on the motion that I went over yesterday with Kate? Kate read it out loud for us and showed it on the screen. They have another data guy. I'm not sure if he's testifying. It sounds like he might be. That the Fed hired. This was I don't remember his name. This is a guy that is supposedly going to say that none of the data from those phones is reliable, presumably because of the way it was handled by the police. But that seems to be a reach to me because the data that they had, it's not like they got something that was corrupted. That was very specific data. So I don't understand how corrupted data would result in something so specific. But we'll see what he says, But the bottom line here, at the end of the day, so this is the way I believe a jury is. This is the way I think a jury is going to handle it. And this is not based on. And thank you, Kristen. Think about this. You got to put a bunch of people in a room, which is really hard, even if you put in 3 or 4. But you got 12 people in a room, and they have to reach a unanimous consensus. Now, I don't care what they have to reach a consensus on. Let's say you had to put 12. Let's say you want to build a shed in your backyard, and you're going to get 12 family members together, and they have to sit down and agree on what type of shed and where to put it and how to build it. It's going to be a problem, right, to get 12 people to agree. This is what's going on here. So you have to get 12 people to agree on a pretty complicated matter here. And how are they going to come? How do they even begin trying to get to a consensus? Now, the first thing they're going to do is take the temperature of the room and just go over generally how people feel about the charges. That's just a natural thing that they're going to do. But then when they begin the work of how do they arrive to a unanimous consent, how do they even start, right? Well, what they're going to do is begin with the things that they all agree on. And this is just common sense, right? Things that they don't agree on, you're never going to get past them. It's good, they're never going to come to an agreement. So if they started out the discussion about, for example, whether or not Jen McCabe deleted any of her calls, you get an argument, right? They're not going to have agreement on that. So they're going to start out with the things that they all agree on, which is going to be basic fundamental things at the beginning. So they're all going to agree that Karen was legally intoxicated. I don't think there'd be any reason to disagree with that. She had enough drinks at the waterfall and at CF McCarthy's, and the blood alcohol level clearly established that she was well over the limit. So I don't think there's going to be any disagreement that Karen was intoxicated. They're going to agree that she drove John to 34 Fairview and left him there. I don't think anybody disputes that, right? That's where he was found. That's where Karen says she went. Nobody disputes that she brought John to 34 Fairview. So those are two things you agree on there, right? John was found there 5 hours later at 6 a.m. He's found on the lawn, but fairly close to the street. They're going to agree on that, right? There's no disputing that. There's no disputing where he was found. They're going to agree on that a partial he had a significant head wound, but that he also had hypothermia, and that his body temperature was only 81. None of them are going to dispute that, right? So there's your starting point, and then you build on that. What else can you add on to that all 12 of them might agree to, right? Now, eventually, you will get to some things that they'll disagree with, but you want to keep piling on things that they all agree with. So what else could they possibly agree on? So the taillight pieces were found at near where John was found. Now, so some people might, in theory, debate whether those pieces were planted there. So then, hopefully, if that's something that some of them are questioning, the next question would go to whether it was possible. I forgot. Let me. It's even though they're entertaining. Let me just go quickly to change a setting on this. Hold on 1 second. All right. So I forgot to. One of the things you can do is, but you have to do it each time, is you put the stream on YouTube. You put it on so that only subscribers can participate in chat. And I forgot to do that, so we were getting a little bit more of the idiots than we're used to here commenting on chat. So now, if you want to come in and say something stupid and try to insult me, you can still do it, but you have to at least become a subscriber. Sorry, I forgot to do that. All right. So what other things will they agree on there? So again, they're going to look at the taillight pieces, and they'll start asking themselves, could that have been planted? Now, what are some questions about those taillight pieces? Well, you can look at the timeline of when they were found, but you can also look at the location of where they were found. And now, we didn't hear testimony on this, I don't think, this time, because we didn't hear Trooper Paul. But yeah, so this won't be a factor. But one of the things they would have looked at last time, I'm not sure if any trooper presented this, but maybe Dr. Welch, I don't know. So one of the things is those pieces were found in a debris pattern. They weren't just randomly placed there. But I'm not sure if anybody introduced that concept in this particular trial. What are what were described as microscopic taillight pieces were found in John's clothing. But could that have been planted there, right? Is it reasonable to think that somebody even would try to plant microscopic taillight pieces inside John's clothing? If you were trying to frame Karen, would you go so far if you were a trooper as thinking to plant microscopic taillight pieces in John's clothing? Would you really go that far? Is that likely? Uh, I think jurors might say that seems like it's pretty unlikely, but maybe not. So you continue to look at all the things that you agree on. And now just starting with the basic stuff that I had there, the fact that John was found there, Karen was drunk, Karen had dropped him off there. You're already starting out close to the Occam's razor, simplest explanation to what happened was that Karen struck John. Obviously, you'll need a little bit more than that. But you've already got any normal-minded juror saying, yeah, that's probably the easiest explanation. And then now you start looking at the data that shows Karen going in reverse at high speed. If you buy into that data, you'll say, all right, then what are the chances of Karen going in reverse at high speed at the same time that John also gets struck and is found on the lawn? So I guess, things like that, it depends on whether the defense can create any doubt about that data. For me, there is no doubt about it because there's no way to fudge or fake or manufacture that kind of data. And the key thing, this is why I said, though, keyword is correlation. You could, in theory, imagine how someone could look at a trigger event, or let's just say if you were framing someone, how they could, as Nick Rocco might try to suggest, that they could have, Michael Proctor could have driven the vehicle, the Lexus, inside the Canton police station parking lot backwards at 24 miles an hour. Okay. It seems kind of crazy, but in theory, right. But what Michael Proctor couldn't have done, and none of them could have done, is recreate so exactly that correlation with John's phone data. They wouldn't have known that. They wouldn't have known how to do that. They wouldn't even known that relationship between that data existed. Trooper Paul didn't know it, and Trooper Garino didn't know it. So to think that they could have recreated something that complicated is kind of ridiculous. So, what other evidence can they look at? I mean, you had John's DNA found on a piece of taillight. I guess in theory, stuff like that is easier to plant or manufacture because it's being done later on at the Sally port. But how many people have to be in on this conspiracy for it to work? And I think it's reasonable for jurors to ask questions like that. So I think there's just more than enough evidence here to really show that there are no other alternative explanations. No, certainly no reasonable alternative explanations as to what could have happened here. So that's how I feel on that. We'll just do a couple of questions, and then I got obviously a busy day today. So let's look at the questions. So first of all, to say thank you to Kristen again. Thank you. I appreciate it. Feeling very good. The only thing that I have is a leftover from the radiation treatments where I guess I may have this for a couple of months where my eyes just start dropping. I get sleepy. Actually, they were before I did this quick show here, and that's part of the reason I came on to talk to you guys. It's just a holdover. So someone paid $5 to say that I am a paid mouthpiece. Nobody's paying me anything. And do you really think that if you're conspirators and let's say you're the conspirators and you want to hire someone to be your mouthpiece, your PR person, am I the person you would hire? Really? Am I the person you would hire? This bald head? I'm the guy you'd hire. Wouldn't you hire somebody a little more professional looking and with a I'm just a little YouTube guy. Why would you hire me? So it's pretty stupid that you guys believe these kind of things because it's childish. I don't know what else to say. Um, it's childish to think that that would even be a good strategy. I don't, it's just because you guys can't face the actual truth, that's why you have to believe these kind of strange things. Mark, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Way more generous than needed, but thank you. No, no, I'm sold today just because it was just an impromptu live, but the panel is still fully with me and fully intact. They'll be back with me tomorrow, and I've really enjoyed working with them. Actually, I'll be watching them tomorrow. I have to go to Boston for a treatment, and so I will be here in chat like you guys watching. I'll comment too if as long as I was. So last time when I had the chemo, right after I had the chemo, which went smoothly, I was watching here. I think I commented in chat a little bit. I didn't say where I was, but then they began the next part of the treatment when they gave me the antibody treatment. It's a kind of immunotherapy thing that was only approved last year, and so I actually had my laptop in the chair with me as they were administering the drug, and I went into anaphylactic shock. So I had to hand the nurse my laptop. Uh, you know, but that was kind of interesting. Their team is trained to respond. There was like 15 nurses and doctors that all come running, and they know what they're doing. And so they had to jab me with an EpiPen, and you're aware of everything that's going on around you. You're able to communicate with them too, and so I had you guys kind of with me when that happened. So I appreciated your company, but thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mimi. Yes. I've done everything I could over the last couple of weeks to get my strength back. So I had lost 23 pounds, and they told me in the hospital, the nurse practitioner, I said, so you guys know I'm a very determined kind of person, and I'm a fighter, and I said, everybody's a fighter when they have this, but I said, I told the nurse, I said I'm going to do everything I can to try to gain this weight back, and the nurse said, no, people with cancer don't gain the weight back. That's what she said. I said, well, I don't accept that. And I said it with a smile. I love this nurse. She was great. Joe is in Boston right now. Good luck, Joe. Tell us more what's going on. We're supporting you. So she said you people with cancer don't gain the weight back. Well, she was wrong. I have gained back about 8 pounds so far. Now I have a long way to go, and it's limited because I can't because of what's going on in my back. I can't really work out. So it's probably just adding more layers of fat. But you can, if you fight, you can do a lot of things that you never expected or that doctors don't expect. I'm going to watch to see what this gentleman, if he responds. I hope everything's going good with him health wise. It's chat moves fast, so it can be kind of tough. Let me see. Um, Doltz, I have not been on the wrong side on anything on this case for a long time. Uh, you know, the last time I was is when I was fed a false story about Colin dealing drugs, and I corrected that. My track record on this case is really, really good. Uh, I can only, if you watch it, you'll see it. This is what they don't want the truth, but if you watch it, you'll see that that's the case. Um, Tyler said his mom is getting it back slowly. So Tyler, if you want to tell us what she's being treated for, and good luck to your mom. Um, but yeah, you can fight back on these things. And Mark says he likes the panels too. Yeah. No, I know, and you've been a great participant during. Actually, Mark, I remember you commenting when I was in the hospital getting that treatment and some of the other stuff. I did see all your comments there, and I appreciated them. I appreciated the support, and they did too. Yeah, 8 pounds. Hopefully, it's not all just beer fat, not like baby fat in your beer gut. Jay's grandfather drinks protein shakes with almost every meal. I was drinking those when I first got home, but I don't have to now because I just eat like crazy. Um, I've been able to eat. So I had esophagitis too. That was part of the reason I was in the hospital. I wasn't able to eat or drink anything, but that's cleared up enough to the point where I can just eat crazy. I love ice cream. I eat that, but I can, I'm not going to go out and have buffalo wings, but I'm able to have pizzas and cheeseburgers, and I'm mostly trying to eat healthy, eating a lot of fish and chicken. No, I think the panel's great. I mean, especially during the live shows, because it's a long show, and it's also been really well. First of all, they're great people. I do think they add a lot to the show. I think most people appreciate that, and it's also been really cool to see everybody grow because the more you do this kind of thing, the better your voice gets, and I've really seen that with like Boomer and Matt, and you know, it's just been a great experience to watch that. And now, so now we have Margaret on, and Margaret's been doing radio and different things for a while, but we're gonna see that same process because analyzing this show as part of a panel is different. Um, and JP, thank you for all you do. Thank you. I mean, we're all doing our best. No, I really love having the panel, and 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 look, a lot of the people wish that I left the panel. They kind of liked them better. So, but but that's okay. I think I try to when I try to do with the panel is try to get out of their way and just facilitate. So keep it going with questions if there's silence and stuff like that. But I do try to get out of the way as much as possible. Was Nick Rocco lying about Arca using dummies and the videos? Well, we don't know what Arca they what we do know is from Nick, right? We don't really know what Arca is doing. They did new testing, and when they say testing, that probably does involve a video component, but we don't know what they have. And you know, so what they present, and depending on how convincing it is, does play a big role on what will happen with the jury. What kind of cancer do I have? I have non-small cell lung cancer, and lung cancer is by far the biggest cancer in the world, the most common, and that helps me because the most research is being done on lung cancer than anything else because it's the most payoff for it. And the particular type of cancer I have is involves an EGFR mutation, and I've been on what's called a targeted therapy for most of the last 7 years, which stabilized it. And I was very lucky because it normally it the normal life expectancy of that particular drug is like 2 years. Actually, it's 18 months or a year and a half. And after that, normally the cancer adapts to that cancer and begins spreading again. I got a lot more time than that. So I was very lucky. And hopefully I'll have a similar reaction to this new drug when they're available to get it to me. The new drug, so I have not been able to get it down through intravenous methods. They've tried it twice now. The second time was during a hospital stay, and both times I went into shock. I want to do it again. I don't want to wait, but at the moment they're making me wait because they're waiting for approval on a type that'll just be an injection, so it doesn't go intravenously. It just goes subcutaneously, like under the skin. And that one supposedly you don't have a reaction. You're much less likely to have an allergic reaction to. But I don't want to wait. I'm hoping they'll admit me to the hospital. Maybe if I can talk them into it, maybe next week, and try again to get through this procedure. I don't care if I have to go into shock again because it's worth the attempt. Thank you, Jill. Yeah, I mean, the panels are absolutely, I love it. So you have the right blend of entertainment and analysis. Kate is one of the smartest human beings I know, and she obviously knows all the evidence on this case. And so very fortunate to have her as part of the panel and is running the channel when I'm gone too. So she's a great partner to have. And but everybody else is intelligent and entertaining and has useful thoughts. It's also we've been very lucky to have Jen Coffindaffer because her experience as a retired FBI agent really comes in handy. This not just as a retired, there's other aspects too. So Jen testifies as an expert in other cases all year. So it's great to be able to talk to her about her experiences doing that because a lot of the debate we have in watching this trial is about experts from one side or the other. Caroline says she'll be at DF tomorrow. What is DF? Oh, Dana Farber. Okay. Well, good luck, Caroline. SSG, I can't say the name, said new here. Well, we'll give it a highlight since I can't say the name. No, I got the wrong one. Hold on a second. SSGTUSMC. New here, and I really like the channel. Thank you and welcome. What I can promise you that I will always do is treat every case with as much with constant objectivity and fairness. Now, nobody's perfectly objective. Nobody's perfectly fair. What I mean by that is it's always on my mind to do that. And every single piece of evidence or part or component of a case that comes down. And that's you have my commitment that I will always do that. I will always tell you the truth. That doesn't mean that I get everything right. It just means I'm telling you the truth to the best of my ability, always. And that's my commitment. I mean, I've been that way all my life anyways. That's just kind of my natural bent. But um, that's my commitment to my audience too, is I will always tell them the truth. If I make a mistake, and I've made mistakes, I correct them as soon as possible, as loudly as possible. And it's important to do that. If you're not sure about something, you tell them that. You tell your audience that. And if you're speculating, you tell them you're speculating. If you have a source, you don't reveal the source, but you say you have a source, or you say how many sources you have. And over time, people will either trust you or you don't. But if you're consistently reporting things that turn out to be true, then they'll know that you're being honest about your sources. And I always have been. And the things, I mean, look, go back to some things are just common sense too. Going back to September or late August of 2023, the so-called meltdown episode when Turtle Boy brought an angry mob to chat and was making accusations against me. Actually, you know what he was accusing me of? He was accusing me of both sidesism, as though that's a sin. Really strange thing, right? I said both sidesism. Isn't that what any journalist should be? Isn't that what everybody should be? Is trying to be both sides. But I kind of went off on him, and I said, "You're presenting the defense arguments that you're getting from Karen Reed," and he called me a liar. He tried to pretend that he didn't talk to Karen Reed. Well, I shouldn't say total writers don't know because they're very naive, but everybody understood that with even a 2 cents worth of common sense, that he was presenting something to his audience that came straight from Karen Reed. I'm not even saying there's something wrong with that, but if he had honesty, he'd at least tell his audience that that's where he was getting from. But if his audience had any common sense, they would understand on their own. They wouldn't even actually need to be told that. But no one in that audience did understand. And I also said he was making a lot of money off it. He said I was lying on that. But just a month later, he's telling Vanity Fair that he's making $30,000 a month. We had a groundhog in the yard today. So I took a video and sent it to a couple of people, including our moderator, Tom Fleming, and he correctly identified it. So good job, Tom. You got it right. It was a cute little guy. Mandy says, I have 4 lesions on my spine that they are watching closely. It's terrifying. Oh, Mandy, yeah, it is terrifying. Is it cancer related or is it because there are other things that can cause lesions, right? MS or different things, right? So I can tell you this now without knowing anything about what kind of lesions you have or what's causing them. If there does get to a point that you have to go through radiation for those lesions, it's not radiation is not difficult. You won't feel it. It's painless. So it's not long. So if they're radiating one spot, it's like 10 or 15 minutes and you'll get through it. Um, there can be side effects. This is my 3rd time going through radiation. In my first 2 times, I had no side effects. This time, I'm having fatigue where I fall asleep. That's the only side effect. I haven't had anything else. I had a little bit of radiation burn on my back and neck, but um, that's tolerable. It's just itchy. But I wish you luck. And if you want to reach out to me for any support anytime, you can. And my email is leitskev, LEITSKEV @gmail.com. Sorry, I'm losing my voice a little bit. Let me take another. That's another side effect. You lose your voice a little bit. But as anybody knows, they can reach out to me anytime, but especially if you're going, excuse me, through something cancer related and you want to reach out to me, please reach out to me. Oh, she says they don't think it's cancer. Well, that's good. That's good. Hold on one second. All right. So let me just real quick. Oh, Mark, geez, thank you, man. I appreciate it. And that sounds like a good idea. You know what? I think I'm going to take you up on that. Chinese food sounds like a really good idea. So we'll do just that. Thank you so much, sir. And man, so back to Mandy. Mandy says they don't think it is. So that's good. That's good. Mine was lung cancer that spreads, and when there were a couple of spots in the brain, uh, 3 metastases. Nurse Kim and some of the other nurses tried to say that I made that up. No, I showed my medical report. I can show it again. And I don't know if it was Nurse Kim. It might have been the other one, Nurse. I forget her name. I don't know why these people have to do that, but it's different for everybody. But in my case, it did spread to bones and primarily to my spine, but also to my ribs and things like that. Fortunately, the medicine over the last 7 years kept it largely under control, and I believe there's a good chance that that'll happen again. And so I do believe I'm pretty optimistic that if I can get this current therapy in me, it'll buy me more stability. And they're doing incredible research on more stuff all the time. So, all right. I'm just going to take on this last question. CC asked if I was a smoker. No, I was never a smoker. Now I did work in bars for much of my life. I was a bar owner, and so like a lot of secondhand smoke. However, I don't even think it was that because my particular type of cancer is more common in non-smokers. So I don't think it's related to smoking. And yeah, Jen is a great addition to the show and a good friend, and it's really great to have that. And Eddie says, this is rolling too fast. Let's see. Would you ever do a deep research of the crowds on demand situation? So Kate is a believer in the astroturfing theory. I am not. Um, I don't think it would be an effective use of money for Karen, and I don't think it was necessary because I believe the hysteria exists and you could whip them up without any astroturfing. So, but we're not going to agree on everything. So no, I don't believe in the astroturfing theory. I do believe it makes sense that she paid some PR people like Olivia Lamb, um, but I don't know that for a fact. But I think it would be probably be effective. Olivia's effective, you know. So, but I think I no, I don't really believe overall in the astroturfing thing. I just don't think it was necessary. Turtle Boy was able to exploit this in a way that none of that was going to be needed. And then once this got going, the hysteria took care of the rest. So astroturfing is if you're paying people to protest, basically. So no, that's my opinion on that. But who the heck knows, right? I don't think it was necessary. I don't think it'd be an effective use of funds for her. So, all right, guys. So I'm going to end this show this morning, and I will set up the show for tomorrow morning. I won't be here in the morning, but the show will be up and going with the panel, and I will be home probably sometime around lunchtime. So I will hopefully see you guys in the afternoon. All right, guys. Enjoy your day. It's hot out there. It's going to be in the 90s. So